We're live.
Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Dojo Live today. My name is Marielle. We have our co-host Carlos Antulio, and today we're having Paul Coyne and Michael Wang, both founders of Inspiren. Thank you very much for being with us today. Um, Paul and Michael, first off, tell us a little bit about the idea behind Inspiren. What exactly is Inspiren?
So Inspiren is a medical technology company that uses advanced computer vision and sensors to essentially transform any hospital room into the AI environment of the future. Inspiren was co-founded by myself and also Paul Coyne, our fellow clinicians and those who are from the technology industry. And we teamed up with a brilliant team of MIT engineers. And this is one of the first times that clinicians and engineers have worked side by side to create something that brings healthcare to the future.
Well, very impressive.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'm not sure if Marielle, you were going to ask that, but maybe introduce yourselves a little bit to the audience.
I'll let Paul start on that one.
Yeah, so my name's Paul Coyne. I'm a nurse. Mike and I actually met in nursing school. My background before nursing was in I worked at Goldman Sachs. I was a derivatives trader and suffered a stroke and went back to a lot of school and tried to redefine myself as a nurse. I think the nurse is the role that's able to heal all aspects of the patient, both physically and emotionally. And I learned that firsthand as a patient and wanted to be able to do that for others. And two, I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable after I had a stroke. So I went back to school, became a nurse, and was fortunate enough to meet Mike in nursing school. And after that, my career led me to analytics. And Mike will talk about how his career led him to the bedside, but my career in nursing led me to informatics and analytics, and Mike led his was led to clinical practice. So we became friends in nursing school and stayed in touch. And then Mike had this idea and called me up, and then we started this company together, bringing our background. So that's me.
That's amazing. That is a story all in itself.
Oh yeah, no, it's told enough though.
We have got to learn more about that. That's an amazing story. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. No problem.
So my background, nursing is also my second career as well. My first career was in the United States Army, and my background was also in business entrepreneurship as well. I got my MBA from Columbia, and at the same time, I pursued my second bachelor's in nursing, and Paul and I both went on to get our advanced degrees from Columbia as well. And the entire concept of the company really came from the critical issues and gaps that we saw in clinical practice. And when I linked up with Paul, who was heading the analytics at a major hospital, we connected in terms of how to bridge the clinical gaps that I saw at the bedside, and also the data analytics gaps that he saw on his side. And I specialize in cardiothoracic surgery, and Paul specialized in data analytics. And when we joined forces, it made a lot of sense for us to create a technology that's never existed before. And like they say, the rest was history.
Very cool. Marielle? What's the topic today?
Well, our topic today is the world's first cognitive patient care assistant, which is Inspiren. Well, you talked about a little bit about what's Inspiren, how does it work? We would like to go more in depth on that, like how does it work? You said this is like a monitor tool for patients. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what kind of things are monitored? How does it exactly work?
Yeah, so it's much more than just monitoring, actually. So as everyone knows, the patient's care environment inside the patient's room, it's a very dynamic environment, and the critical care that actually takes place in that environment Currently, there's no insight to what is actually happening in the patient's environment. So a lot of the adverse events, such as falls, medication errors, procedural errors, patient safety issues, all of these things exist in real time and are happening in real time in those environments. But there's absolutely no way for clinicians to be able to identify them, to be able to analyze them, or to be able to leverage data and more sophisticated software to be able to predict bad things before they happen. So Inspiren is positioned to use computer vision and advanced sensors. So the entire thing works as one small hardware device that essentially goes behind the patient's bed that creates a 180-degree view of the entire hospital room and automatically uses computer vision to not only map the environment, but also automatically analyze things that are happening inside that environment. Some of the things that we capture are patient-staff interactions, patient behavior, staff behavior, also environmental factors that can contribute to patients' well-being, safety, as well as comfort. So all of these things are data that we are currently collecting, and we are so far the only company on the market that can collect these kinds of critical data, analyze it, and we're in the process of integrating and defining the way that we use these kinds of data in conjunction with the electronic medical record system in how to define the role of AI and how to create the neural network to be able to create sophisticated predictive algorithms, analytics engines for us to be able to have a very high accuracy in predicting adverse events from happening, and also, most importantly, for us to prevent those things from happening in the first place.
Okay, so I have a burning question. There's talk about how to leverage AI in healthcare. There's a lot of talk about it, whether it's scientific research, where you have multiple permutations to discover cures to disease. But this sounds a little bit more practical in everyday sort of life. How is Inspiren leading the way, and if so, in terms of introducing practical use of AI in the healthcare business?
That's a great question. With AI, everyone's talking about AI, but very few people really truly understand the infrastructure or the architecture of how AI actually works or functions. And more importantly, before the event of singularity, which is when AI becomes self-conscious and we go into the age of Terminators, AI right now is only AI is only as good as the data that we feed it. So if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. So Inspiren is playing its part in defining the data structure and how we look at data and how we feed the data into the AI platform. This particular intellectual framework, we call it MDMDS. It stands for Multi-Dimensional Modular Data Synthesis. So all of the data that Inspiren collects are, in a way, imagine an atom, if you will, right? There's the nucleus of the atom, and then there are all these electrons that are revolving around the nucleus. Look at the nucleus as the particular problem they're trying to solve, right? All of the problems in healthcare does not occur in a linear causality, meaning A leads only to B, right? The problems that we have are multidimensional. For example, patient falls is not simply solve one thing and then all falls disappear. They're multi causes and multiple dimensions to the problem. So all of the electrons around the nucleus are all of the data points and causalities that contribute to the problem, which is the nucleus. Inspiren's approach to data synthesis is that the central problem, we're solving it by pulling data from all of these individual other areas of data that we know causes the central problem. Now, the modular part of this that's interesting is any source of data should not just serve the purpose of solving one problem. Data should be able to be disassembled in a modular sense where, for example, if you're solving another problem such as staffing, for example, the exact same sets of data could be pulled and reassembled to address the problem of staffing. Therefore, from problem to problem, all of these data are shared almost like covalent bonds, taking us back to high school physics. It's all of these things sharing data and being able to pull from the same data sets to solve multiple problems that really truly creates a neural network where rich amounts of data can really feed and be able to solve sophisticated problems in a multidimensional kind of a way.
Is it safe to say that what you've done is turn a nucleus, the way people use machine learning, into basically one of the machines that it's learning from?
That's correct.
Maybe simplifying it, perhaps, but that's
correct. And the more you do it, the smarter and more efficient it becomes, until the point where it could autonomously decide which data points to pull in order to solve the specific problems that it's trying to solve.
Okay, this is quite big. I'm curious, what gave birth to this, to Inspiren? Like, you guys got together, obviously, to each other. Like, what was that moment? It's like, you know what? This is what we need to do, and here's why.
Yeah, so
I'll let Paul tell that story.
so Mike actually was out on short-term disability. He was in a camping accident and cut his leg, and I was out for a couple of weeks as his leg healed.
My leg, I put an axe into my leg. Just, whoa!
Ouch!
So he saved himself, and so he was home, and I think he was a little restless, if I can speak for him, right, Mike, and was home thinking about all the problems that he was facing as a nurse, and just really wanted to be able to practically solve a solution. One of the things that Mike spoke about with MD-MDS, the data that we're using is not a historic, data set. Most of AI in healthcare now is built off of historic data sets that are then aggregated and tried to be combined together to then make a new prediction about something that will happen in the future. And our hybrid sensing device on the wall is unique in that it's collecting the data from the physical and digital environment using AI and machine learning to sort them out and correct them right then. There's no data set. Most AI in healthcare is this historical aggregation of the data set. So that's not how, though it evolved to that. The initial idea was to put one device on a wall just for falls prevention. Mike wanted to solve falls, and originally we were kind of going to be like the Shazam or the hospital room, if you will, of collecting all of the noises that are bed alarms, IV pumps, sort of listening, not pulling the data from an API of when those go off, but really being able to integrate any noise that goes off in the room and know that it goes off. So we started to assemble a sound database, and the hospital said that this is great. We're able to alert which bed alarm's going off down the hall so that the nurse doesn't have to try and find it. But that we really, if we were going to take up plugs were real prime real estate in a hospital room. And if we were going to take up a plug, we needed to make the device even more robust. So we partnered with we emailed a lot of individuals, college professors, experts in IT and the AI and machine learning space. And really, Mike's vision the whole time was to, which ended up being the company vision, was to put one device on the wall, just one, because along the way people were like, no, you could have one device, but also this, and also this, and before you know it, you have 10 little things all around the room that you have to install. And Mike, to give him credit, because he probably won't brag about himself, but I'll do it for him. Was very adamant about having this one device on the wall, and ultimately we used Bluetooth Low Energy and computer vision, in addition to all of the other environmental sensors of sound, light, and temperature, sound, microphones in the room, to be able to know exactly what happens physically and digitally in that space. So it's evolved over time, a lot of ups and downs and failed attempts, as every startup has, but ultimately found a great development partner. We learned and iterated on the device. The design of the device went through over 70 iterations to really come up with the final form factor and the specific design. Partnered with some individuals from MIT who are now full time with our company as our chief technology officer, and partnered with a development company in Brooklyn in the Navy Yard to really bring the vision to life. And partnered with clinicians, Columbia University Nursing. We really assembled a full group of people to really get behind this get behind the company and vision.
That sounds amazing. It really does. I want to open up to questions from the audience. If anyone has a question, they can submit them on Twitter at Dojo Live. Carlos is keeping tabs on them. He will interrupt us and ask a question. Same thing for those watching on LinkedIn Live. You can post them right on the stream, and we'll ask those questions to both Michael and
Sure. Hey, Tulio, about questions, we do have one, and it's actually from one of our guys here internally. The question comes from Sandra, our very dear Sandra Vasquez. She's part of the sales and marketing team and also the UX team. And hold on one second. Let me just read it to you because I have her here on Slack. Okay, Sandra is asking, what's the biggest challenge, in your opinion, in your industry overall, related to improving the customer experience and its impact on adoption?
That's a great question, because any technology, no matter how sophisticated or how great it is, if it does not have end user adoption, is essentially useless. So one of the key benefits and the key differentiators of Inspiren is that we are the end users. We're not using some clinical consultant of some sort to advise us on how to make the technology. We lived and breathed the pains of what happens when we do not have insight into our patient's environment. So from day one, anywhere from the UX perspective all the way to the design of the device, which this year won the Innovation Design Award from Fast Company. And we thought this thing through every single step, and not only trusting our own clinical instincts, but also continuously involving practicing clinicians as a part of our design and functionality team to advise us on what's valuable to them, what they would like to see, how they would like to use it. And even after deployment, even till today, every single moment that we get, we're receiving real-time feedback from our customers, and we are getting very, very good at listening to our customers, listening to the frontline people, listening to the managers and the executives from the client's end, and putting all of that into a knowledge base that gives us a very rich and a very robust way that guides design. Design must be guided by functionality, by user experience. So Inspiren is very, very adamant and very, very committed to that design process. And we are religious about it, and we're extremely committed to achieve high adoption rate. And so far, knock on wood, we have achieved very, very high adoption rates. And the most fulfilling part is to see our end users come back to us and say, you know what, I absolutely love using this. And a differentiator of Inspiren is also to really transform very complex data in real time to something that the average everyday clinician can hold in their hand and know actually what's going on, and using it to help their clinical practice in real time. In the end, not everybody's going to learn Tableau, not everybody's going to learn sophisticated software. So it's really democratizing data in a way where it puts the power inside the hands of every single clinician.
Okay, I have a question. Very early, 30 years ago, maybe a little more than 30 years ago, my very first job was in Great Neck, Long Island, part-time in the summer with a company called Physician Reciprocal Insurance, which is a malpractice insurance company.
Yep.
Is this the kind of technology that can improve care to the point where it could also help avoid some challenges that a lot of hospitals and doctors face related to,
Absolutely,
malpractice cases that are really not actually don't have merit, and also does it help hold them more accountable?
That's actually a critical part. First of all, I'm from Long Island, so it's good to hear that. But the Inspiren technology, a big use case is to be able to objectively provide data that can validate clinical practice and also the great job that clinicians are doing. And actually, Inspiren has already been used in a capacity to be able to validate the works of nurses and also other types of clinicians in real time of the work they actually did, despite perhaps a complaint against them or whatnot. So it's already being used in that kind of capacity, but we foresee that Inspiren actually will become a data standard, for example, for Medicare, Medicaid, to be able to use this data as a kind of a golden standard of care that can objectively define the actions of clinicians and defend them if needs to be, but also really just to create a non-biased view of the clinical environment in a way that's very productive.
Marielle, I'm sure you have some questions by now.
Yeah. I was thinking like the whole picture, like how does it work? And I was thinking like, is it working right now? Are you having it implemented at a hospital right now?
Yeah, it's live in a clinical environment. It's one of the very first, if not the first, computer vision platforms to be live in the clinical environment. And people from clinicians to managers to patients, and they're loving it. So tying back to the question about the UX, all of the hard work that we put up front to think things through in order to create something that people will use and people will enjoy using, that really paid off in the go live phase of the technology. And because of that, we had arguably one of the smoothest and most outstanding deployments of a brand new technology ever. So credit to the team, credit to all of those who worked incredibly hard to make sure that it's successful in the clinical environment.
And just to add on to the validation component of that technology, after it was implemented, Columbia University School of Nursing did pretty novel research that hasn't been done before in this way because the data was not available on a wide variety of not only measures such as time spent with patients, frequency of patients, hourly rounding, bedside reporting, compliance, and nursing metrics, but also on their outcomes such as falls, impact of the patient satisfaction, impact of pressure ulcer prevention. So that research is being published by Columbia Nursing. We have a partnership with them, and they've been very wonderful. So that just not only is it on the wall, but it's also being validated by independent third-party academic centers.
Tell us a little bit about the journey, guys. Lessons you've learned along the way, challenges you faced. Everyone's always curious to hear how you got here, right? You're having success, you're getting adoption, you've got something that literally makes the world a better place. But getting there, I'm sure it's been quite a journey. So please share with us something about lessons you've learned, challenges you've had along the way.
Yeah, to do what we do from day one to get to here, there's no way to really sugarcoat it except to say that one must have a very high tolerance for pain. To not have any illusion about what it takes to innovate. Innovation is pain. And the more pain that you take on as the innovator, the less pain the adopter and the end user will experience.
I really so quote that, Carlos. We got to quote that. That's a quotable thing. So say that again. The more pain you take on as the innovator,
yes,
the less pain those you're innovating for
Yeah,
experience.
correct. And it's extremely important that starting from day one, you build the culture of the company according to that philosophy, right? So it's not when it gets painful, people begin to really lose focus and really begin to question, oh, is this the right thing, whatnot. From the very beginning, expect the very worst. Expect to take on the pain. Welcome it actually, because that's what's going to really make your team extraordinarily strong when things get very rough. And trust me, there are moments, and Paul and I will put this in a book in the very near future. There are moments where it's almost like a movie. Really, it's very cinematic in a way, because that's how hard it gets, and that's how a lot of days the difference between failure and success is just on the very edge of the sword. It's on the very, very edge of the blade. Either way, it could tip. But what makes it tip in one way versus the other is the extraordinary willpower that we build because we welcome the pain mentality, knowing that we went through hell together and nothing will faze us, and we will never quit, we will never falter, and we will lean on each other and get through anything. And never compromise the vision. Never, ever compromise the vision, no matter how many people try to rattle your cage or try to really push you to one direction versus another. Really build your team in that way, and it will, when it becomes autopilot, it makes the job of the CEO and also the jobs of executive leadership much, much easier in a way where you don't have to constantly tweak and adjust the culture, because the culture was built on a foundation so solid and is based on the real thing, which is the pain that we went through to make it what it is today. So I think that's probably the most important lesson for me from day one. And I'm sure Paul can also share his.
Yeah, I mean, I think completely agree. Just you have to like the people that you're going through that experience with, and I think Mike, as the leader, has assembled, has set that vision. But also, we've both been very fortunate to have a wonderful team with us who make who we want to be sort of in the trenches with, and who are all there for each other. If you have, particularly with a small startup, every single person. If you have a company of 5,000 people, maybe one person, might not be not having that same philosophy as Mike just stated. Maybe the company can still succeed with the other 4,999. But if there's only 3 or 2 of us, and then growing to 5, 6, 7, however 10, however many there are now, it's not possible if you don't really have each other's backs, as Mike stated, and really all sort of adopt that same philosophy. So the struggle has been has been real, but also the fulfillment that comes from doing something with all those people that you look up to and admire, and achieving a common goal together. Not necessarily this great result that we have, but just the lessons learned in that journey, I think make the struggle worth it.
And all the people that you're doing this with.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I did a startup, I used to joke around and say, when people say, "How are you doing?" I would say, we're in that sweet spot of becoming $1 billion unicorn or being out of business. Just on that edge of that sweet spot all the time. Tell us a little bit about what you've adopted in terms of culture. We're running out of time. We literally have like minutes left. That always happens when we start to have fun with this. Tell us a little bit about your culture. You mentioned about the team, having the right team. What kind of culture have you adopted that allows you to attract that kind of talent?
I think our team is designed in a way where it's not for everybody. We're very intense, very relentless, and a lot of that culture was adopted from my Special Forces days. And we put that right into the way that we structure the company. So the expectation is very, very clear from very early on. You come and join the Inspiren team, be ready to be absolutely relentless in the way that you pursue your goals, the way you work with each other, your commitment to one another. It's absolute and thorough. So with that culture in place, it's very easy or relatively easy for us to immediately realize who doesn't belong and who does. And those who are with us, I can honestly say, like I said before, I'm always in awe of these people. It could be, we could be going on the 40th hour working straight, and all of us are absolutely just depleted. But I can sit in that room, I can look around the people that are in that room, I can say, man, I get to work with Vin Casito, I get to work with Paul Coyne, I get to work with, these are just people I genuinely look up to, admire, and they make me better as a person. If you have that kind of a team, that kind of a culture, it doesn't matter. You can throw everything at us and we'll take it. So that's the foundation, and you got to build it from there.
I love it. Commitment before ego. It's been a pleasure talking to you both. I'm going to pass it back to Marielle. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Any follow-up final questions? But again, it's been a pleasure talking with both of you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I just have one final question. Thinking about the overall possibilities of Inspiren, do you see this in the future expanding to any other areas? Maybe I don't know, stay-at-home patients or something.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the additional primary markets is the in-home environment, providing, for example, for the elderly or the incapacitated, even long-term care facilities, because as children are further from the elderly parents, they want to be able to keep track of their care, and also an intelligent way to be able to analyze the care they receive throughout the day without having to stare at a video camera, right? So Inspiren offers that capability, and that is actually a huge market that we're getting into. And not surprisingly, one of the highest demands for that market actually comes from Asian countries, where the elderly population are ballooning out of control. And this is where the technology is really going to shine, to be able to bring a peace of mind to family members who have those that are under the care of others.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Carlos, want
That's
to introduce next week's guest?
actually, yeah, I was about to, well, actually, it's not going to happen next week. We're still waiting for
That's right, 4th of July.
confirmation. Yes, but we're going to have this is just a quick announcement before we all go. I'd like to mention that on July the 10th, as a matter of fact, we are going to be, that kind of leads me to the women in tech topic, because we're going to be having a conversation with, let me get the name so you have it all. And then, folks, we just got this like today. So let me just pull it up. We're going to be speaking with the founder, actually, of, just give me a minute and I'll pull it up.
I'll be broadcasting from New York City that day.
Yeah, Bianca.
Brilliant guy.
Yeah, her name is Bianca Jain, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Jain. It'll be all there on the website, on Dojo Live website. It's not updated yet, but I just wanted to mention this. And we're going to be speaking with her. She is the founder of a company called Airing, which is about, let's see what it's about, and I'll tell you all right now. Of course, like I said, it'll all going to be there on the website by the end of the day today. We're going to be, it's data-driven business solutions. They solve complex business problems, align stakeholders, develop companies' data DNA, and deliver rapid ROI. That's what's on the website. Anyway, it'll all be there. So that's going to be on July the 10th. And for next week, we're still waiting for confirmation. So I don't have that info yet. But without further ado, what I'd like to say, Paul and Michael, I'd like to thank you big time for having been with us today. On behalf of myself and, of course, my fellow teammates, Tulio and Mariel. And I'm going to ask you to stick around for a minute just to wrap up once we go off the air. And
Okay.
That's pretty much all I have. Again, Tulio, thank you. And Mariel, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.